This is my response to downshift83 about my Diavel Carbon and the many things I hate about it. I think he went kind of weak on his, but and he also addressed stuff that he'd installed aftermarket. I'm going to mostly address just stock failings of the bike, at least design failings in my opinion. First off, it's kind of a crappy, ugly day out, so it's a little windy. Hope that doesn't bother people. But the first thing is tires. Now, you only had one option for tires for 5 years, and that was the Rosso 2, if you can see that. Diavel Rosso 2 by Pirelli. They're great tires, don't get me wrong, but tire life has been a complaint of owners on the forums and all over the place for a long time, and they tend to cup very quickly. By cupping, I mean you can see the left and right side, right here and here, tend to wear a bit faster than the middle. So you get this pointy tire syndrome that affects handling, and damn, my front is just about worn out. You can see the wear bar, so I need to replace that. Shit. Luckily now we have Michelin Pilot Power 3s available, and I will be trying out those next and probably doing another tire change video that's much shorter. So also on the topic of tires, the rear tire, if you look at the profile of this rim, it's extremely shallow. What that means is, when you're trying to change this big bastard, and you're trying to get the bar to go in and pop the tire onto the rim, you have no room in there to maneuver. So I've shown this in the tire change video that I did, but that is why it takes much longer for techs to change your tires, and it generally runs, I think, $150 to do the labor, because they charge, God, it's like an hour and a half to change these tires. So FYI, Diavel owners, that's why the shops are like, they kind of groan when you bring your bike in to change the tires. The techs do not enjoy that part, and I didn't enjoy it learning it myself. So there's that. The reservoirs on the controls, I swapped these out for a different brand. I'll talk about why they're bronze in a different video. They used to be black, but the stock caps actually leaked. The little rubber seal here would let fluid weep through, and because they were painted caps, the caps would bubble, and that looked like ass. Ducati did take care of owners that complained, but they gave them another pair of like powder coated caps that didn't look much better. I'm also not a fan of the fact that there's no speed bleeder on there. Like on my 1098, you got a bleeder right there. You can bleed the brake. On this, you actually have to take the cap off, and then there's not an actual bleeder. There's like a little burp screw, and that's really annoying and messy. So what some owners have done is taken these caps off completely, the reservoirs off, put standard reservoirs on, because underneath here, guess what? It's basically the same as a 1098, and you can put a bleeder on there, and you can run the hose to a regular reservoir. So what the hell? Yet another style over ease of maintenance choice that Ducati made, that they are continuing to make on the X Diavel. So there's that. Suspension. This should actually be way high up on the list, because it was one of my biggest disappointments. I thought that a $20,000 motorcycle with Marzocchi forks and a, what was it, Sachs rear shock would actually be somewhat comfy. No. This bike has been extremely wooden and hard from the get-go. The ride is very harsh, especially over bumps. At high speed, it can murder your back. I've had videos where I talk about this, and you can actually hear me like grunting and complaining about the pain. But no matter how I adjusted them, it made no difference. They were still harsh at high speeds and lumpy and crappy at low speeds. It's basically, do you want your suspension to be set up for a track environment with pristine roads that are clean and not bumpy at all? Or do you just want to give yourself a headache? So what a lot of people have done is replace the fork cartridges with Andriani cartridges, and those make a huge difference. They're only like $400 or $500. You do have to pay for international shipping from Italy. And then the shock underneath, I of course replaced with Ohlins when I had that accident, ran over a truck tire, because that reservoir right there ripped off. Yeah, kind of a dumb design decision to put a reservoir right on the bottom of the bike. And then the shock there as well, so it gets just filthy. Yeah, still, it handles great. It's a really, really, really fun bike to ride, and that's part of why I bought it. That's what sold me, was the test ride. But that's, I really hope that the Diavel fixes that. So next, the overall fuel tank design really annoys the hell out of me. The radiators on the side aren't such a big deal, but these huge intake scoops, the huge tank cover, the fact that there's an upper and lower tack. In order to do all this, if you look at my Duck EE install video, what you have to do is take off the fly screen, take off that tack, take this whole shroud out that goes in there. There's like 7 or 8 screws. Before you do the shroud, though, you got to take that intake cover off, that intake cover off, then you take the shroud off, then you take these off, and they're held in by these little slots that you push the cover into, and there's a screw right there. So you take both of those off, then you have to take these side panels off after you take the seat off, and then once you got those side panels off, then you can take this cover off, and it exposes the fuel tank. And then you could take the fuel cell off, which has a screw up there and a screw up there, and then you can finally access your fuel cell. Isn't that a bunch of bullshit? So luckily they fixed that with the Diavel. The Diavel just has a standard stainless tank, a front mount radiator. So that's awesome. One of many reasons I'd consider swapping up to that bike. The other problem with this is the fuel cell has the emissions canister right behind that part of the cover, and it takes up at least 1 liter of capacity. So your fuel light comes on around 100 miles, and you're out of gas at 130. So that really sucks for something that's supposed to be kind of a, I don't know, cruiser / sport bike. And especially with a front end that's this gigantic and bulbous, it's just inexcusable. It's really annoying that they couldn't at least put a 5-gallon tank in there. If it was a big metal tank, like the Diavel, and it was that huge, I'm sure they could have gotten at least 5 gallons of capacity out of it. But as it is, what the exhaust, the header rubs. In stock form, the header rubs a lot. If you're leaned way over, of course. If you're riding it like a sport bike, like Ducati intended it to be ridden, this thing rubs. And I'll show you. It's right there. Right in the middle. You can see it's kind of discolored. You point with my finger. It's right here. So that's a big scrape. On my other header, it's gigantic because I actually got a spare header from somebody who was selling their stock exhaust and did some mods to that. I'll do another video about how I did that mod later. But you can see I got rid of the flapper valve and made some changes. So what I did helped, but stock, this thing, even though you've got a 41-degree lean angle, you can't properly use it because you start scraping hard parts that are not the foot pegs. I really wish they would have tucked it up. There's plenty of room. I mean, there's plenty of room. The clutch sticks out up that high. It could have been angled up more, but they didn't do it. I mean, they should have just had the collector up here and then had it go like that, but yeah, whatever. I fixed it. What else? The seat. The seat is not comfortable at all. The stock seat was garbage. The Strata seat's better. The seat that came on Downshift's bike is a lot better, but he still seems to have issues with it. I think compared to this, it feels like a dream when I'm sitting on in the dealership, But of course my mind could change once I've gotten 100 miles on it. So I've been holding off on spending the $300 to $500 on a brand new seat. I just can't really justify it when I can live with this one. Just wear some padded shorts. So the issue with this seat is you can see the shape. You got that much that's kind of flat, and all of this sweeps up. So what happens is all your weight ends up getting put on your tailbone and your upper buttocks, and your ass is killing you after 50 miles. So I did scrape it out. If you look up my video, and this actually pushes in before it actually touches the foam. So the reshaping did help, but it's still not comfy. I need to get it just completely recovered, and maybe just take it to Saddlemen and have them do their magic on it. Aside from that, the chain, I wish it had belt drive like the X Diavel, because this chain is really friggin' heavy. It gets filthy unless you're a complete lunatic and clean your chain like every single ride and keep it meticulously clean. It's just a lot of weight. It slaps on the swing arm. I don't know if you'll be able to see, but up there toward the front, when you go over bumps, it likes to slap the swing arm. If it's even like 1 millimeter out of spec, you'll hear this loud clunk every time you shift. Frequently, as you're like slowing down and then getting back on the accelerator, you hear a clunk, like it's like a wood block. It's a lot of people have complained about it. Some people have fixed it by putting a piece of rubber between the chain protector that goes on the swing arm and the swing arm itself. And I don't really consider that a fix, because all it does is quiet it. You're still slapping. You're still causing premature wear on that block, but whatever. I just found that if you get it exactly adjusted and you're meticulous about it, keeping it adjusted every time you do chain maintenance, it doesn't clonk nearly as much, but it still does it. It's still heavy, and we should just be switching to belts on sport bikes nowadays. They can handle the power. So, next thing. Plastic parts on a carbon edition motorcycle. Now, don't get me wrong, the carbon that is on here is really friggin' nice. It's some really nice stuff. The anodizing on the aluminum is really nice. And overall, it's a pretty cool bike. But the belly pan, if that was matte carbon, it would hide dings and scratches and filth a lot easier. It's not carbon, it's plastic, it's painted gray. This gigantic mud flap does its job, but it's plastic. This mud flap, plastic. The under tray is plastic. So, oh, and this up here is plastic. So if you look at the cost of what all those plastic parts are, yeah, it's well over $1,000, but you'd think that Ducati could have just raised their price by $1,000 and just gone the whole mile and made a bike that really makes the owner go, hell yeah, I got what I wanted from the get-go. Hell, I probably would have paid $25,000 for this bike if it came with Ohlins. Looking back at it, I would totally repurchase this bike if I didn't have one, if it just came stock with Ohlins. And that's the one big thing that's holding me off on getting the X Diavel is the suspension. I really need to test ride it, go on the freeway, go over some bumps, and then make a reasonable choice. But they don't really have the carbon issue with the X Diavel because they don't have a carbon edition yet. So hopefully they'll have a carbon S down the road. So there's the plastic parts. Next thing, keyless. The keyless is really cool. It works great. I'd say 99% of the time for me. But the few times that it doesn't are really, really frustrating, and they tend to be the worst possible time, like when all your buddies are taking off from the gas station and you're the last person and your bike doesn't start because there's radio interference or your battery's dead or whatever. It'd be nice if the bike would tell you that your fob communication is weak. I have never noticed a symbol on the dash, but it just doesn't do it. It would also be nice if the fob was stronger. I don't know. I've tried a bunch of different things. Many owners have tried a bunch of different things on the forums, but it's just a touch and go thing. If you happen to be in an area with lots of radio interference, you're just kind of stuck and you got to use the pin code. So that's annoying. Oh, you also can't have more than one fob, and they're really friggin' expensive to replace. When I moved back from Ohio to California the last time, we couldn't find my fob. Turns out we left it in a drawer back in Ohio. So in order to ride, I mean, I could have kept entering the pin code every time I wanted to go riding, but that was really annoying. So impatient me, I went to the dealership and got a new key, and that was, I think, all said and done, it was over $250. So don't lose your key. Don't do that. Keep it in your jacket pocket and get a keyless fuel cap, and never, ever, ever put anything in the tail of your bike, because lots of people have left their key right there, and guess what? Pew! Yeah, not a good thing. So that's my only gripe about the keyless. I wish it was stronger. I wish you'd get a warning if your battery was going low, and just convenience type things that I hope they've improved on the X Diavel. Luggage options. There really aren't any. There's a tail bag that has tiny little saddlebags, cutesy things that you might fit a cell phone into. Typical Ducati. But the tail bag looks retarded. It's gigantic and just looks stupid. I'm never putting that on my bike. And you can't put it on the bike with that cover, otherwise you'd scratch the hell out of it. So, I don't like that option. The Strata bags would work, but they're not quite big enough for me doing a long trip. If I went out with XXX Deadhead to Yellowstone, those bags are tiny. I might be able to fit a couple changes of clothes in it, but it's just not what I'm looking for. What I want is traditional, like, Harley Davidson style metal standoffs and actual tank saddlebags that are made out of leather that are ideally also waterproof, but just something that looks nice that I can leave on the bike and it's not gonna be an issue. Now, of course, the exhaust angle, I'd probably have to get a different exhaust or modify that one so it points straight out the back instead of up. But if they're leather, it probably wouldn't get hot enough to be a problem anyway. I could always, like, put some heat shield on it or something, but that's my last gripe. Like, everything else about the bike is stellar. It's just a pain in the ass to work on because of this. There's just too much crap on the front of it. Headlight's easy to work on. There's just two little screws in the front. And I'll do separate videos on this, but overall it's a great bike. There's just all of that stuff really, really put me off after owning it for a while. And it's like, I mean, any significant other. You live with the person long enough and you're like, God damn it, I hate it when they piss with the door open to the bathroom. So, it's a great bike. If you're interested in buying one, take it out for a spin. And as long as your back can handle the suspension, there are suspension options. You can get Ohlins forks for about $3,000. And the rear shock is a reasonable, about $1,100 if you get it from Dan Kyle. But, Dan Kyle Racing. But overall, it's a great bike. It's fun to ride. And it's a great daily. It never breaks down on me. So that's a huge plus. Overall, I'm happy with it. But I'm seriously considering trading up to the X Diavel, since it just looks so much easier to work on. It has both front and rear control, or midship control peg options. The front pegs are adjustable in 3 different positions. It has a bunch of different bar options, apparently. It just, overall, it looks like a really, really, really good package. But I'll probably have to wait a few years and get something that has Ohlins suspension out of the box, or at least have an Ohlins kit I could buy to install on the bike from the get-go, because I'm not willing to settle anymore. Hope that explained some things about my owner experience of the Diavel Carbon Red. And if you've got any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below. And if you find this video interesting, definitely give me a thumbs up. Helps get my visibility out in YouTube land. And hopefully more people will get the information they're searching for in their first time on Google. So, hope that helps, and I'll see you guys next time.